Hello my friends, and welcome back to Meerkat Musings with your host Ben. First video in some time. Apologies for the delay in getting out some vids. I have been busy for various reasons, with a lot kind of on my mind, a lot of stuff going on at work, and just juggling a few creative things as well. So I haven't really had the time to do one of these videos for a while. But here I am. And here I am talking about the recently released Nintendo Switch 2, which this Meerkat was fortunate enough to be able to get on day one. And I wish to offer some early reflections on the new hardware. It's very early days. I mean, I've had this thing for less than a week. So, there's still a lot to kind of unravel. At present, the only new game I have is Mario Kart World, which was, of course, a launch title for the new console. So I can't really pass judgment as to what's kind of going on with some of the other new games. I have upgraded my copies of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, so I will be making some references to that. But other than that, this is, as I say, a collection of early thoughts on the Switch 2. So let's get the obvious stuff out of the way first of all. People have been talking about the price tag of this console. A lot of people have been talking about it in a derogatory sense. It has launched at a more expensive price point than the Switch 1 to a fairly considerable degree. I mean, to give you a bit of perspective here, I think the original Switch launched at a price point of $279, all the way back some 8 years ago now. And the Switch 2, if you just went for the base version, launched at $395. So you're looking about just shy of 120 quid more for the new console. And of course, if you wanted it with Mario Kart, it's $429. Sorry. So again, a bit of an uplift there if you buy it with Mario Kart. To be fair, if you bought the Switch 1 and then you were to buy, say, Breath of the Wild separately, and it would have been separate at the time, I think that was a good 50 quid. So you would still be paying about sort of 330 to get the Switch 1 with its kind of big launch title. So you're looking at about £100 difference there if you work it all out. Is £100 a big uplift considering the hardware and the upgrades to the hardware? Obviously, it depends on your perspective, doesn't it, and your circumstances. For some people, it will be a big jump in price, and that's absolutely fair. If you think about what 100 quid can go towards these days, it's not an insignificant sum of money. For others, it's more about, I guess, the annoyance factor. It is frustrating when we see these things launch at some expensive price points. But again, perspective is needed here. When you look at the launch prices of say, the PlayStation 5, for example, you'd still pay a fair bit more for one of those. And I think you would still pay more for one of those now, even though it's, by this point, a few years old. Although, of course, you could also argue the PS5 is still more powerful than the Switch 2, as I believe it is. But the Switch 2, some positive things to note. It packs a lot of punch. I think it's probably there or thereabouts with a PS4, if not more powerful than a PS4. And it's kind of squeezed into something you can hold in your hands, which obviously you can't do with a PS4. So it retains all of the versatility of the original Switch. You can play it in docked mode through the TV. It now supports higher resolution graphics such as 4K. You can undock it as you could before. And use it as a handheld device. It's got a kickstand, so if you want to set it up on a table somewhere and use the controllers independently, you can. So it retains all of that versatility. that you had before, and it brings in some new features which maybe aren't necessarily out of this world, and maybe they haven't been implemented in quite the way that people would have wanted, but you now have a voice chat feature through the Switch. It only works with people that are on your friends list, at least that's what I gather. It is tightly controlled through parental control modes if you happen to have anyone on your Nintendo Online account who is a minor. So it has good safety features almost kind of built into it, which is very Nintendo. And you can also attach a webcam to the Switch, should you want to, and make use of basically sort of video chat while playing friends on, say, Mario Kart or a host of other games that are multiplayer. As before, you can subscribe to Nintendo Online, Nintendo Switch Online, as it's known now. I already had that on the Switch 1, and it copied across to the Switch 2 quite seamlessly, it must be said. In fact, all I had to do was put the two consoles, well, near to each other, and all the data kind of copied across. You can switch between the two consoles to a degree. So, for example, if my daughter wanted to play Breath of the Wild on the Switch 1, through this virtual game load thing that they've introduced, you can basically kind of eject it from the Switch 2, so to speak, pop it back onto the Switch 1. She can play through her own playthrough. And then, we can switch it back to the Switch 2 as and when I want to sort of use it. And it's all pretty easy in many respects. The Switch 2 is backwards compatible with most Switch 1 games, including the game cartridges. I don't yet know, Nintendo have said that not everything will be backwards compatible, but I don't think that affects anything in my game library, thankfully. So I've got that full library accessible to me straight away. There are some new games which have kind of vaguely intrigued me, although only vaguely. Cyberpunk was, of course, a big deal a few years ago. Now it's available on the Switch 2, and people have shared footage of it running, and it appears to run extremely well. It's certainly, better than perhaps it was running on the PS4, and it looks like it actually will provide a good experience. You've also got Hitman World of Assassination. That one intrigues me because I enjoyed some of the Hitman games I played on PC many years ago. I've seen footage and clips. They look to be very fun games, very big games as well. And going forward, who knows, of course, what's on the agenda. I don't think we're going to see, and I've said this before, I don't think we're going to see a big kind of AAA new Zelda experience anytime soon, because we had Tears of the Kingdom only a couple of years ago. But it wouldn't surprise me if Nintendo have got something in mind for the Switch 2. It wouldn't surprise me if they've got something in mind for Mario as well, although we've not long had Super Mario Wonder, of course, but a follow-up to Mario Odyssey or a new 3D adventure in that vein. It wouldn't surprise me if Nintendo has something in mind. They do tend to put these things out there on their new hardware. So I guess we watch this space with that one. And of course, as already mentioned, we've had Mario Kart World, the 9th mainstream installment of the Mario Kart series. I remember the first one, and I remember being kind of blown away by the first one and its comparative simplicity, of course, now. But, we've cycled through so many crazy Mario Kart titles down the years, and here we are with the ninth Mario Kart game. My early impressions, and bearing in mind that I've only played this for a few days, is that it's a good game, it's a fun game, it's what you expect from Mario Kart. It's madcap, especially when you've got 24 racers, the most we've ever had in a Mario Kart roster for online play. And when you've got 24 people jostling it out, battling it out, it gets insane. But I kind of like that. I really like the knockout tour mode. and that brings a different kind of intensity, a different kind of fight to cross the finish line or be eliminated kind of thing. And I've had a couple of good results on that. Second place and third place. My daughter was actually gutted on my behalf because I missed out on first place by a whisker. I actually wasn't that fussed, which if you know me, you'd be thinking, who is this guy? Because ordinarily Mario Kart raises my blood pressure, something chronic. But I'm trying to take a more relaxed approach to this. I'm not a young man anymore with quick reaction times and skills. I'm in my 40s. It's not to say I can't do well. I'm sure there are plenty of very good gamers in their 40s. I'm not one of them. So I just kind of poodle around, enjoying the experience of competing with other people in a community that's built around fun, which is what Mario Kart Online I think kind of is. So, I've had some enjoyable experiences. It's, as I say, absolutely crazy. And so far, so good. The free roam open world concept perhaps needs fleshing out a bit more. I don't know if Nintendo have download content planned for this game. They did for the last one, so it's hardly inconceivable, of course, that they'll do it again. But we'll have to sort of wait and see. I do wonder, will they kind of look to treating gamers to Mario Kart Double Dash through the new GameCube emulation they have running on Nintendo Switch Online? Yes, that's right. They now have GameCube games on there. Only accessible to people with a Switch 2. It's kind of a new and exclusive thing to that. They have a handful of games on there thus far. An F-Zero game, Soul Calibur, which I've never really played, and The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, which was a gorgeous game. A bit frustrating in places, to me personally, but no denying it's one of the most beautiful titles in the Zelda series. So that, of course, is a new thing for the Switch 2. And in general terms, I like the way the console looks and feels. It's, yes, of course, it's bigger than the Switch 1, but not obscenely so. It still works fine as a handheld console. And I have to confess, this is a very simple thing, but it's something which I absolutely love for some reason. It just seems to scratch an itch in my brain. It's the manner in which you kind of click the controllers into the console. Just feels very, very satisfying. It's done through this magnetic system. It's strong, it's tough, and they just clip in there with such a satisfying sound and feeling. So there's that as well, if you like that sort of thing. And yeah, overall, I just think it's a nice, neat console with plenty of room to grow in terms of games. We shall have to wait and see, of course, in that score. I did think, and thus far I haven't been able to make it work, I haven't checked to be fair, but I was of the impression that the Switch 1 Pro controller could work with the Switch 2, but I haven't been able to make that work yet. There is a Pro controller for the Switch 2, which I don't have yet. It's about 80 quid, so we're back to that price point question again. So quite pricey to get these accessories. So best case scenario is I save up for a time, or perhaps I suggest it's like a joint kind of Christmas/birthday present from someone. But they're not going to be on the immediate agenda, although the Pro controller would be quite useful at some stage in the not so distant future. Anything else I can add about the Switch 2? Well, I will go back to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom for a moment or two. Both gorgeous games on the Switch 1. Massive games, of course. Amazing entries into the Zelda franchise. They do look sharper and cleaner on the Switch 2. They do load faster when you're kind of like, say, jumping between certain places. And they just have a vibrancy that they perhaps didn't quite have before. But would I pay for that? I would be a bit kind of begrudging having to pay for that if I was in those circumstances. Of course, you can buy them for the Switch 2 from the ground up. So if you don't have a Switch 1 and your first taste of this is the Switch 2, you can just buy them on their own, so to speak, and you'll get the kind of full experience. But yeah, I mean, as I say, they're already gorgeous games. Now they're even more beautiful. What I don't currently have is a 4K TV to really do them justice. But I do think they are absolutely sort of gorgeous titles, and I'm looking forward to kind of immersing myself back into those worlds a little bit more. Other than that, I don't really have much more to add, to be fair. I think if you're kind of like a dedicated Nintendo fan like me, I think you'll be able to see past the price point to a point. Although, yes, there is no denying it's more expensive, and yes, there is an element of frustration with that, especially when you stop to reflect that Nintendo don't tend to drop their prices. The original Switch is still $279 most of the time, which 8 years on, should it be? Probably not. Mario Kart World, if you buy it on its own, is 80 quid. 80 quid for a game is asking a lot. And that's the case with a lot of their games now as well. So, I mean, yes, times have changed, costs have changed, inflation's kicked in, so everything does tend to go up. But it is nonetheless frustrating because Nintendo historically have not been quite as bad for that as other companies. But to put this into some perspective here, other companies are selling their games at similar price points on other consoles. Take, for example, some of the FIFA games on the PlayStation. They are routinely 60, 70 quid, and then you've got the deluxe editions, which are even more. The same thing applies to various like sort of Call of Duty, Battlefront games, and a host of other games, which tend to kind of have some very expensive options, and then that's before you even look at a lot of the download content you have to pay for as well. So, make no mistake, it's not great for Nintendo to do this, but it's hardly unique. And Nintendo perhaps are just moving into territory that is already occupied by other game manufacturers and other console manufacturers. And with luck, they still won't go as far. But of course, we'll have to wait and see and cross that bridge a little bit. So, those are my thoughts. Those are my early impressions. I will, at some stage, do a more comprehensive review of Mario Kart World once I had a chance to really, truly sink my teeth into it. We'll take a bigger look, a deeper look at all the nuts and bolts of that crazy game. And we'll leave it there. So, with luck, I've piqued your curiosity to find out a bit more about the console. And with even more luck, perhaps I'll see you on Mario Kart World at some point in the future. Take care.